Hey, so been a bit since I talked about NGU Idle, huh? Well, today's video is going to be less an explanation video and more a rant, to be honest. I am currently only a couple weeks away from being a year into this game. Well, technically, I had a relatively lengthy hiatus from the game from late August to around Christmas time, so dock a few months I guess while you're at it, but even so. Either way, let me set the scene. It's now been about a month since I defeated the Godmother, the game's 8th Titan, for the first time, and unlocked the Wishes menu. And the game has finally, well and truly, broken. And as much as I'd love to tell you how much I hate the Wishes menu in this video, there is just so much wrong at this point in the game that the community actually has a name for this specific point in the game. It's known as the Typo Wall. A point in the game which is simply always going to be grindy and slow and take fucking forever to get through. And it's not to do with your skill as a player, it's not to do with poor resource allocation, it's simply the fact that this part of the game is designed to be ludicrously tedious with no way around it. And while unlocking the Wishes menu was the catalyst that made me realize I had to make this video, and the big easy scapegoat to blame for how much this part of the game sucks because of how awful the Wishes menu is, to be honest, in hindsight, looking at the bigger picture, it's not just the Wishes menu. The Wishes menu just happens to come in at the worst possible time. There's already a lot of other things going on in the background the second you step into evil difficulty that don't start out so bad, but continue to get worse and worse behind the scenes, and crescendo to their most awful state by the time you reach the Wishes menu. It's less that the Wishes menu is terrible, although it is terrible, and more that it came at a time in which you were desperate for a new menu to fix all the mounting issues with the game, and the menu you get is just something that makes all of them worse. That being said, because this is going to be quite a lot of explaining, this is going to be split into two videos. This first video is going to be talking more about how the issues with evil difficulty stack up, and while they're not so bad when you first enter evil difficulty, they get really bad by the time you've unlocked the Wishes menu. And the follow-up video will cover much more about actually how the Wishes menu fucking sucks. But before we get there, I'm going to do a quick catch-up. I know that most of you watching will already be familiar with NGU Idle, but I do have a wide variety of content on this channel, so some of these people might not have seen any NGU Idle beyond the videos I've already made. And I've only made an introductory video and a video on beards because they're my favourite menu in the game. So just to quickly catch people up, although this will not be in very much detail, some of the menus that I have unlocked that I haven't talked about yet would be the Yggdrasil menu for defeating the second Titan, where essentially you can grow fruits that grow 1 tier per hour, and the more tiers you wait to grow before you eat it, the better your reward gets. I already explained the Wandu's, NGU, and Diggers menu just incidentally in my beards video, even though it's mostly about beards, so I'm then going to skip to what you unlock for defeating the 5th Titan, the MacGuffins. This isn't really an entire menu and more like a sub-menu inside your inventory. Basically, MacGuffins are very quote-unquote rare items, although they're not so rare beyond a certain point in the game, that essentially, if you have them equipped in your MacGuffin slots, when you rebirth, you get a permanent bonus to a certain stat, and the stat depends on the MacGuffin that you're equipping. The bonus you get depends on how long you're in the rebirth, but shorter rebirths give better rewards in terms of time spent to bonus gotten ratio. 15 minutes is the sweet spot where you get the best conversion rate. When you first unlock MacGuffins, they're terrible, but they get better as they go. And lastly, for normal difficulty, the final menu you will unlock is the questing menu, which, despite having a lot to it, also feels a little bit kind of pointless, I will admit. It's basically like a second perks menu. You earn quest points by doing quests, and you spend quest points to buy quirks, which are just perks with a Q on them. And while I don't mind having a second perks menu, since perks definitely spice up the game, I would have liked it if the way in which you get quest points was actually different than the way in which you get perk points. And it technically is, but it isn't really. The way you get perk points is by grinding by killing enemies in the Itopod. And the way that you get quest points is by going on quests. What do you do on quests? You're told to go to a certain adventure zone, kill a bunch of enemies until they drop a quest item, and then get about 50 of that quest item, give it back to the beast, and you get a quest point reward. So basically, it's the same as the Itopod, except you can't AFK it, And because it's also based around killing enemies, you can't be both in the Itopod and doing a quest. So it kind of feels like not only is it just another perk points menu, but it's another perk points menu that basically makes you do the same thing that you do to get normal perk points, and also forces you to not be able to be in the Itopod to be able to do them, so you can't do them both at once. It's a little strange to me, but I don't hate the menu. I do like having more perks to choose from, or quirks in this case, just a little bit strange in my opinion. So with that said, there's your quick catch up. That gets you all the way up to evil difficulty, where the game gets a whole lot harder, or so it's supposed to at least. Now, one of the things that always made NGU Idle so fascinating was that for the most part it remained impressively well balanced for an idle game. I mean, who's ever even heard of balance for an idle game? I genuinely remember on multiple occasions while going through normal difficulty just actually thinking to myself while playing, wow, I can't believe I haven't either gotten stuck yet or found some game-breaking exploit to shoot ahead in power ludicrously fast. They must have playtested this game thoroughly for balance. I genuinely spent a decent amount of time while playing this game wondering how the hell they even went about balancing such a game like this so well. Every playthrough would have been a couple more years off your life, but even if you cheated and set the numbers in advance to playtest, you'd need to consider so many variables to calculate a realistic and reasonable set of stats to work from. So I just couldn't get over how amazingly well the balance of the game worked. That is, until I hit the Typo Wall. This game has already had a couple choke points in the past. It's not 100% perfect. But even the mild ruts the game can fall into have not been anywhere near as bad as the Typo Wall at all. The first choke point was, funnily enough, immediately after defeating the first Titan. You'd think that'd be a very fast part of the game because you unlock 2 brand new menus instead of just one, the NGU menu and the Wandu's menu. Both of them become super important later on, but also both of them absolutely suck when you first unlock them. They both just go so ludicrously slow for such little returns until you get more speed boosts later on. But this is just a small choke point, and you're still pretty early in the game. The second choke point, and probably the closest this game's got to falling apart in normal difficulty, was after defeating the 5th Titan. As I said, MacGuffins really suck at first, giving barely visible bonuses for hours of work. Once again, like NGUs, they get better later on, but here later on really does mean a lot later on rather than maybe in a week or two. Even still, this part of the game wasn't infuriating to me per se, just a little bit dull. But there's still plenty of choice to make during this choke, given the power and flexibility of the Beards and Gold Diggers menu you unlock for the previous 2 Titans. It's just slow going is all. There is one more tiny choke point in the game, and that is actually making the jump from normal to evil difficulty. You'll be scraping the bottom of the barrel to cross the last couple challenges off the list, and that can be tedious, and so can saving up the perk points for the Welcome to Evil difficulty perk, which is basically a requirement. That perk is so powerful you're going to need it the second you enter evil difficulty. As well as that, first arriving in evil mode, other than said perk, you basically get no real reward for the extra challenge you're incurring until you can get back to your baseline boss 58 and start crossing off some of the low-level challenges and finding new gear to equip. Even so, at least there's new stuff to experience in evil mode, and this choke can sting a lot less if you come prepared. All 3 of these chokes are slow, low points of the game, but at the end of the day, they did not make me want to quit. Ultimately, that was because they may have been tedious, but at the end of the day, I still felt like I was being presented with multiple options to move forward with, and I still felt that the decisions I made mattered. The 4th choke point killed my love for this game, because it is both more tedious and slow than any other point in the game, while also providing the player with no meaningful choices of consequence to make in any capacity. That is why the community has a name for this part of the game specifically. After having defeated the Godmother, but still not having near enough stats to progress to the next adventure zone, the Typo Zone. That is why we know it as the Typo Wall. Every player hits it, and there's nothing for them to do about it. You just sit, and you grind, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait until it's eventually over. Given how mind-numbingly boring this section of the game is, I've had more time than I'd like to admit to agonize over every little detail, consider every angle, think how it all went wrong, what I could have done differently, and just generally put together what the fuck happened here to make things get so bad so fast. And as a result of all this deliberation, now this rant is your problem. You're going to have to sit here and listen to me explain how multiple poor design decisions in a row stack up and accumulate in a vile symphony of tedium that crescendos at this specific point in the game. You're now going to have to sit and listen to me explain how the wishes menu is the worst menu in NGU Idle and how all the problems with evil mode made it that way. Strap the fuck in. Now, I can't beat around the bush, tempting as it would be to go straight for the obvious and bitch about the wishes menu directly, and don't worry, I fucking will. I think the problems begin far, far earlier. In fact, I genuinely would say the first cracks in the game's balance start to appear the moment you enter evil difficulty. It's just for the first couple months it doesn't really sting quite as much, but each passing day it slowly gets worse. We're going on a long journey here, so for the sake of coherence, let me just outline the big bullet points first. There are a total of 5 major reasons why the Typo Wall is the worst part of the game, ranging from simple to very messy and complicated under the hood. Reason number 1. Evil mode makes your progression hit walls faster and harder, but the only tools it provides to counteract that are completely based upon mindless grinding. Number 2, evil mode challenges do not even give nearly enough reward to help you make meaningful progression, and so they feel kinda pointless. Reason number 3, in evil difficulty, you eventually unlock a third resource besides energy and magic to use. You can name it whatever you want, so it's just known as Resource 3 in a generic sense. So yeah, you're gonna have to get used to me seeing Resource 3 all the time. Resource 3 is the only thing worth spending XP on for the entirety of evil difficulty because it's just literally the only thing that does anything. But it's also intentionally stupidly expensive because of that fact, making this section of the game super boring and tedious. 4. Once you hit the point where you're maxing normal NGUs but also hitting diminishing returns on evil NGUs just break for a while, which completely destroys the progression of the game. If you're not sure what I mean by normal and evil NGUs, we'll get back to that later when we get into this point more in depth. And 5th and finally, yes, the wishes menu fucking sucks. It is fundamentally designed to be a menu that forces you to AFK for a day to get anything done. We'll tackle these points in depth in a moment, but one last disclaimer before I get into this. There are 2 counter-arguments I know I'm going to have to preempt in the comments, so let's get these out of the way. Argument 1. Well, it is evil difficulty, so it's supposed to take longer to progress. It's supposed to be harder. Well, not necessarily. In fact, ironically, I would say that although evil difficulty moves slower, it also genuinely feels like it takes less skill to optimize your progression in evil difficulty. The difficulty of the game is supposed to be figuring out the optimal way to spend your limited resources to progress as fast as possible. Evil mode, however, gives you less meaningful decisions to make while forcing you to grind for longer, making it both dumber and slower, the worst of both worlds. This isn't the only thing, but the most obvious example of what I'm on about is the fact that, as I already mentioned, you have to spam Resource 3, Power, and Cap to get anywhere in evil difficulty. So you never actually think about how to use your XP, you just get XP and you throw it back into Resource 3, and you get more XP and you keep throwing it into Resource 3, and you keep throwing it into Resource 3, and you keep throwing it into Resource 3, and that's how you progress. That isn't difficult, that's brain dead. But it is very, very slow. All of this also ties into argument 2. Why are you complaining about mindless grinding in an idle game? It's an idle game. It's all grinding. Well, obviously that is true to an extent, but when I say mindless grinding, I mean that all of the meaningful decision making the game has to offer is gone. The very thing that even introduces any challenge to the game in the first place. Deciding which beards to activate for each run was a meaningful decision in normal mode. Deciding which diggers to prioritize to make the most progress was a meaningful decision. Deciding which Yggdrasil fruits were most important to prioritize was also a meaningful decision. Hell, at times, even deciding which NGUs to prioritize was valuable, even though most of the time it was best to simply level all of them at once. Spamming the buy Resource 3 power button is not a meaningful decision. That is what I mean when I talk about mindless grinding. Yes, NGU Idle is a game where you infinitely grind and hoard resources, but the fun of the game is figuring out the best way possible to allocate those resources. When I say mindless grinding, it means that you no longer have to think at all to allocate your resources efficiently, you just keep spamming the buy more resource 3 button. Get used to hearing that, you're going to be hearing it a lot. So with those disclaimers out of the way, let's begin. Entering Evil difficulty, you'll quickly realize that your number bonus for defeating bosses has been severely kneecapped. Now hard stats matter more than ever to boost your number. I sorta get it, it makes judging whether you're ready for challenges more difficult, but otherwise it generally does make active play feel more useless. It's never worth it anymore to stick on that rebirth just a little bit longer to get one boss further, because frankly, beating bosses just doesn't help your number that much anymore unless you're beating a whole lot more than just 2 or 3 extra bosses. In Evil mode, more than ever before, challenges do kind of feel like nothing more than stat checks, and I can only assume it's going to get worse and sadistic. As a result, you're going to need to buy as many blood and number boosts as you can get to increase your number multiplier. Your methods of boosting your number from normal difficulty will be petering out by now though, so it's slim pickings. NGU number isn't going to help you for a whole lot longer, and the fruit of numbers is probably only inching forward a slight amount with each passing day at this point. The number beard as well really has some diminishing returns once you get to this point in the game, even if you can have all 7 beard slots active at once. As a result, when it comes to number boosts, to start with, you'll get literally nothing, so you'll have to lean on hard stat boosts instead. But later down the line, you'll unlock the hacks menu. Essentially NGUs, but for the new and extremely expensive 3rd resource. This is all unlocked for defeating the 7th Titan, the Greasy Nerd. The only difference between hacks and NGUs is that hacks have a milestone mechanic, where once you reach a certain number of levels on a hack, you get a bonus that stacks multiplicatively with the already existing total bonus of the hack. So if I have a hack that has a milestone bonus of 1% and also gives a 1% boost to a stat each time it's leveled, and it takes 50 levels to reach the milestone, once I'm at level 49, I'll get a 49% boost. Once I get to level 50, I'll get a 50% boost, plus an extra 1% boost from the milestone. And the milestone boosts are reapplied over and over and over. So for example, if you have a 10% milestone boost that you get twice, that's not 120%, that's 121%. Other than that though, yeah, hacks are literally just NGUs copy-pasted into a different menu. The only other difference is that obviously NGU speed doesn't affect hacks. You need a different stat, hack speed, to make your hacks go faster, and of course hack speed is a whole lot rarer than NGU speed. Hacks just take time, and the only way to go faster is to get more Resource 3. But Resource 3 is quite literally 100,000 times more expensive than energy. You've got no other options in the game to improve your hack speed other than to complete no NGU challenges, or of course, use another hack to increase your hack speed. Yeah, you're going to be stuck on repeat waiting hours to hit the buy Resource 3 power button for a long time. Well, is there no other way to boost your number then? Well, in the following adventure zones, you'll discover a number and a blood MacGuffin, but MacGuffins are also ludicrously slow and grindy too. The best you can do is spam 15-minute rebirths to maximize their output, but even at full efficiency, these things are just super slow. Also, apparently according to the NGU Idol Discord, the number MacGuffin is the worst MacGuffin in the game. I thought it was going to be really good before I got it, but man does it take forever to get even a somewhat meaningful flat bonus off of it. And even once you finally get it, it's not the sort of thing you get to scale super effectively with, unlike resource MacGuffins, which are a lot more effective. It's tough luck though, because those are your 2 options, hacks or MacGuffins. Both require you to just sit and wait and grind with basically no ability for player decision making to speed up the process. One is to sit in a rebirth waiting for a bar to fill, and the other is to rapid rebirth doing the same thing over and over and over every 15 minutes to watch the MacGuffin numbers slowly tick over. Oh, and did I mention you can't do both at once? At most times, it will take anywhere from 2 to 5 hours to get full Resource 3 amount whenever you rebirth. So if you focus MacGuffins, you'll have no Resource 3 to spend on hacks. Sure, you can buy Resource 3 bars to speed things up if you want, but that's 8 million XP a piece. You sure you want to throw all that down the drain just to wait 3.5 hours instead of 4? Genuinely, the only player decision of consequence to be made here, other than to grind, is to focus no NGU challenges to speed things up. Which I did. Very hard. I got 8 out of 10 completions of the challenge done before I even finished my first laser sword challenge for a 260% hack speed boost, and I'm still progressing slow as fuck. I'd finished the job and crossed the last 2 off the list, but like I said, you hit walls harder and faster in evil mode. Combine that with no NGUs, and you just don't have the ability to simply power through challenges if you're underprepared for them anymore. If you jump in too early, you will be stuck there forever no matter how well you play it. You just hit the wall too hard. Which brings us to point 2. Evil mode challenges suck, at least past the early game. The basic challenge that you get to do right at the start does give plus 50% adventure stats in total for its 5 completions, which is nice. And the no orcs challenge giving plus 50% orc speed in total is nice too, but past that, I don't know. I guess getting a MacGuffin slot for completing all the no equipment challenges is okay, but like, some of these challenge rewards fucking suck, man. The 24-hour challenge XP boost gets kneecapped from 10 to only 4%. And remember, that's not global XP. That XP bonus only applies to bosses, which is useless, and titans, which is somewhat useful. The 100 level challenge gets your Wandus to boot up faster, which is convenient, but it doesn't actually make your Wandus any stronger. The blind challenge still only grants daycare speed boosts when the daycare fucking sucks, man. And not to mention, the no time machine challenge comes out the gate strong with doubling your gold drops in the first completion, but then it just immediately falls on its face by granting only a 10% speed boost to the time machine's leveling speed per completion from then on out, all while paying out some of the lowest XP and AP rewards of any challenge despite being one of the slowest challenges to complete due to the huge boss numbers. But you still gotta do it anyway because, oh god, I didn't even mention yet, when you enter evil difficulty, things get slower. If I remember correctly, augments get 1,000,000 times slower, blood gets 1,000,000,000 times slower, and the time machine just gets, you know, a conservative 1 fucking trillion times slower. I wish I was joking. Which reminds me, oh god, I didn't even mention, while evil challenges give much better XP rewards, they actually give severely less AP for some fucking reason. And the worst part is, while early on into evil difficulty, these increased XP rewards are helpful, past the very beginning, even the XP rewards begin to suck. Oh sure, I'm sure it sounds great getting 5 million XP for doing 1 no rebirth challenge, until you realize that all that really translates to is a 0.52% speed boost to your hacks once spent. And that is the single highest XP reward you will get from any of these challenges. Most of them don't even give you enough XP to buy 0.1 more resource 3 power. And the laser sword challenge, oh god, the laser sword challenge, I don't even remember what this does in evil. Hang on, let me check. Additional special rewards will be added over time. Oh, so is this like some gimmick where like it doesn't give you anything at first, but with each completion the text changes and like it says, okay, now it gives you this, now it gives you this. Is it just like there was too many of them to list 20 of them like they do for the troll challenge where they list all 7 of the different rewards? Maybe if I just complete it, I'll see the text change. Nope, didn't change. Huh, let me consult the wiki. No, the wiki just says the same thing the challenge does. Additional special rewards will be added over time. What does that mean? Oh my god. You've got to be kidding me. Apparently, they just literally never programmed a reward for this challenge and it was supposed to be added in a future update. This game has not been updated in over 3 years. Oh god, they really just gave us no reward for this challenge, didn't they? The only evil mode challenges that actually help do anything for you in the mid-game are the no NGU challenges for the hack speed bonuses, and some of the troll challenges. For the hack speed bonus. Okay, I kid a little bit. The extra accessory and extra MacGuffin slots do help too, but the extra daycare slot is super underwhelming though. And can we just talk about these for a second? Fuck these challenge rewards that just arbitrarily decide to lock off a feature off a menu that I haven't even unlocked yet, and then for completing them all I get is permission to use the feature that I can't even use yet in the menu I don't even have unlocked. I unlocked the ability to use the dual wielding wish 2 months before I'd even unlocked the wishes menu, and even now 3 months later, I still can't even afford it in the first place. And why are there 2 of these this time? You may as well have just written, haha, fuck you, you get jack shit here, and I'd honestly respect you more if you did, rather than trying to pretend like permission to use a feature in a menu we can't even unlock yet is a reward. We have gone long enough without delving into the third point now, but you probably already get the picture by now. Hacks are everything in evil mode, and it's almost kind of a nothing else matters sort of deal. It's genuinely that bad. As a result, because of the fact that hacks are only affected by Resource 3, and hacks are also the only way to progress, both in the main game and in adventure mode, the whole game becomes spamming Resource 3 for eternity. As I mentioned, the hacks menu is basically just NGUs but for Resource 3, so you may be wondering if I'm exaggerating a little bit. Sure, hacks are probably more important than all, especially because they can do some things that NGUs can't, but if the reason they're important is because they're basically just extra NGUs, surely energy and magic are still valuable for increasing, well, you know, actual NGUs? Well, no. And this kind of ties into point 4, NGUs fucking break in evil mode. It doesn't happen immediately, but certainly by the time you reach the Godmother, you will be feeling it. Normal NGUs will be effortlessly easy to level at the maximum speed of 50 times per second using minimal resources. That probably sounds good, but due to severe diminishing returns that will be kicking in by now, remember you're going to have millions of levels in these normal NGUs by now, what that really means is that you can have NGUs maxed for every single second of every single day and still come back after AFKing for weeks, only to see 1 or 2% effective boost to your stats compared to what you had before. Evil mode tries to solve this issue by adding evil NGUs. The same NGUs all over again, only slower and with even poorer rewards. Sounds stupid? That's because it is. Okay, I'm being a little bit facetious there. The idea is that it's still worth it to level evil NGUs, even though they level far slower and give far worse rewards, because of the fact that evil NGU percent boosts stack multiplicatively with the normal NGU boosts. And this works at first until the evil NGUs also hit their diminishing returns, which are even worse than the normal mode ones. Once you hit that soft cap for every single evil NGU, maxing out energy and magic and equipment and diggers for NGU speed to hard invest into evil NGUs genuinely gives worse returns than just throwing like less than 1% of your total energy and magic into perma-leveling normal NGUs at max speed, no diggers required, no equipment required. And all this is bad because the entire game is built around the assumptions that NGUs work to keep the game running along. And once they cease to function, the whole game stalls as a result. Suddenly, XP costs to make meaningful progress are skyrocketing, but you aren't making XP any faster than you were 4 months ago, because NGU XP has barely budged the entire time and challenges don't give jack shit. Suddenly, to make more progress in game, you need more power and number, but power and number NGUs just aren't budging, so you have to focus hacks instead. Suddenly, perks are costing you a fortune, but you're barely earning any more perk points than you were when you first entered evil difficulty. Suddenly, your adventure stats just can't go any further, and you're forced to increase them via overpriced and underwhelming perks or quirks, or through hacks. And do you want to escape this vicious cycle of spamming Resource 3? Well, maybe you could do that with perks, but everything's overpriced and NGU PP does nothing anymore. What are you gonna do? Buff respawn? NGU respawn has the worst diminishing returns in the entire game, and the Ring of Looting and Stapler from normal mode are the best respawn boosts in the entire game. You've already peaked. From here on out, you're looking at 4 to 6% respawn boost at maximum on any equipment you get in evil mode, if you even get more equipment to buff that stat. You want to try questing instead? You can't. There's not even an NGU for quest points, but you know what there is? There's another fucking hack for it. Ugh. Farming NGUs might not have been the most fun thing in the world, but at least there was interaction to be had there. There was evaluating the value of energy versus magic. There was equipment that improved NGU speed that you could equip, whereas the only hack speed boost drops so late into the game that I don't even have a single one yet over 200 bosses into evil difficulty. There were diggers and beards for improving NGU speed. Where's our hack speed digger, huh? Where's our Resource 3 beards? We don't get any. All there is to do here is spam more and more and more Resource 3 and pray it gets better eventually. I cannot believe this part of the game has actually driven me to the point that NGU speed, quite possibly the single most valuable and important stat in this game in normal difficulty, genuinely feels like a near useless stat at this point in evil difficulty. As you can see, in hindsight, there is so much more wrong with the game than just the wishes menu come the mid-game of evil mode. But the fact that all of these severe issues with the game are all starting to boil over simultaneously means now more than ever, the player needs to be thrown a bone. We need to throw some new mechanics into the mix to bail the player out of the hellish grinding nightmare they're about to be thrown into if something doesn't change soon and fast. As a result, the wishes menu needed to be good to save this part of the game. And well, here we are. We finally arrived at the end of this first part. I'll cover the wishes menu in the next video. I'll see you then.